I might need help with the agenda. I forgot to print it out. All right. Call the 4 June 2020 Templeton Advisory Committee meeting to order. Could you stand for the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Let me bring up the... Sorry, I don't have the agenda printed out. I gotta find it. All right, here it is. Okay, so sorry. Did the pledge meeting from last minute? Did everybody get a chance to review those? Any questions?
None on my side.
If we have no questions, I'll take a motion to approve them.
So moved. Second.
We have a second. Okay, Lee,
Yes.
Amy.
I was only present for half of the meeting. Do I still vote?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, yes.
Because you were there for part of it. Bob,
Yes.
Will, Tom,
Yes.
Debbie.
Abstain.
Okay, Will.
That's the last Will.
And I'm a yes. Let's see if he's still there. Or he was. Will, are you still on?
I'm back.
Okay, we were voting on the minutes from
That's
the
fine.
last meeting.
Go ahead.
No, we did. We're just waiting for you, yes or no.
That's okay. I'm going to take it. Just if you've already voted, that's fine.
No, we're literally just finishing up.
I have not looked at the minutes, so I.
Okay, that's different. Okay, all right. So you're gonna abstain?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Next, we have 2 budget transfers. So the first one is I can't find anything.
Well, excuse me, we have Mr. Chairman, we have 2. We have for the buildings and grounds and we
Right.
have for the veteran services.
Okay, let me see which one I have here first. This first one I have is for buildings and grounds since Bob is on.
Okay.
Okay.
I have a concern about this.
Okay.
If you look at
hey, Will.
Our policy.
Well,
It's strictly, it says, and we haven't got a copy of that signed by the selectmen, that I'm proposing that we put off voting on this until our next meeting on the 11th, because our policy is quite straightforward, and it says that we should have this a week before, and I don't have a copy of that.
Okay.
It was
sent.
As far as I know, they voted last night at the meeting and you all were sent signed copies this morning for this meeting tonight.
Well, right. So
It doesn't make the 1 week. I mean, if we're going to have a policy and every department head received a copy of the policy, including the administrator, multiple times. I can tell you the dates. It goes all the way back to February 2017, May of 2018. I could end up going on and on as to when it was sent out to everybody. that
Okay.
they know what the policy is. I
So
mean,
the copy that I,
if we're gonna
Will?
be if we're gonna end up following policies, we should be following policies. The selectmen always have been, the administrator has been saying right along, about policies. He's pushed the selectmen into policies, and just because they don't follow them doesn't necessarily mean that this body should not follow them. That's my thing. The motion that I'm making is they can end up putting off this until we've had a week that they can take a look at this per the policy. I'm not
hey,
saying,
Will,
yes,
I do not disagree with you at all. First of all, the copy that I have today is not signed, so I'm not signing it. We're the last signator on it, so I'm not signing it until the requester and the select board have signed it. They could have signed it, scanned it, and sent it to us. If I'd like to give Bob a chance to just explain what it is, so we could save some time next week and look at it. But I agree. I think that this should be moved to next week because of the fact that we don't have signed copies. And
I'll agree with you,
and
Tony.
we got
that
it
we can
today.
end up asking questions of Bob while he's here. I didn't mean that they can end up saying that we shouldn't at least ask questions. But
Yeah.
the decision for this should come next week, since it's a one week.
Right. So I knew about that this was coming, and I knew they were going to vote on it last night, and I didn't stay on last night because they wore me out. But we should have had a copy of this well before the week if it was known. So, Bob, why don't you go ahead and tell us what you're asking for? I don't think waiting a week is going to be a big impact to this, will it?
Good evening, board. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
I think we do have some bills pending, but I think we'll be okay. If you hear me out a little bit, I might have a lot of your answers. I'm sure I won't have some of them. On the buildings and grounds, we had several unexpected repairs this year. We had some at Town Hall in the vault. We had a couple of heating issues at the Town Hall. We had some major updates on the furnaces because they were out of code and compliance, and they wouldn't certify them until those were done. We had some services at the fire department in Baldwinville, the DPW. And just those alone was about $4,800. Now, along with that, as I explained last fall, at the heating oil, the DPW, the large part of the garaging, so say, the waste oil furnace was tagged out. So we used more fuel oil there, along with a lot of the other locations, not just the DPW. And that furnace has been put into the budget capital planning to get replaced. So like the Boynton Library, as of today, we're $623 over from plan budgeted value. The emergency management building was $647 over. Town hall went up substantially. We're $4,400 up there. The cemetery garage off of Bridge Street, that's actually a little bit below budget. The fire departments in Baldwinville were over $3,600.
Hey, Bob, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Did all of these, and reading your memo, I see where basically, and I don't know who your oil company is for this past year, but it looks like what they did was they topped everything off. About what time of year was that?
They do it weekly. just if you would, let me finish this and I
Sure.
would get into some of that. And if you have questions. The fire department in Baldwinville, there's 3 fuel oil tanks down there. And every year we have since I started, we have a different oil company. And those 3 tanks get confused a lot because they call them one thing, call them another thing. Brick building, rear office. Well, the brick building, the original part of the station, has 2 tanks. There's one in the back and there's one off to the right side. So we are working on this. I'm going to number those tanks and change the paperwork throughout so everything's identified properly. Because sometimes they'll put the brick building, like now they're putting those 2 tanks as one. And I want to separate everything so I can start a spreadsheet and keep better calculation of each tank and what it uses from year to year. The DPW were $3,990 over, and that was the effect of that waste oil furnace. Templeton Common Fire Department, they're almost $1,000 over. So between the overage on the fuel, which comes to $17,454, and the repairs at $4,800, or about $22,300 over expenditure on unexpected. We went out to bid last year with the school. It is a contract price, which was $237. If you get a state bid, that price can fluctuate up or down. I don't know if you're familiar with that, like gas and diesel at the pumps. The gas, we saw low as 55 cents a gallon since the COVID. This coming year, we're going to be going out to consortium, which is like what we do for the road salt. They get a bunch of towns together and they put all the gallons together and get a low price. So next year should be pretty good. And speaking of that, like the salt, I just got an email. It's actually going to be cheaper this coming year than it was last year. So that's pretty much on unexpected repairs in the fuel oil. If you have questions, I'd be more than happy to help you out the best I can.
Okay. So the price you pay for oil is just static $237 all year?
Correct.
Okay.
Bob, I have a question. You mentioned about you had problems with the heating system and the town hall. Can you elaborate on that? Because that's a fairly new system.
Okay, yes, I can. Yes, it is a fairly new system, but I'm not sure how old they are. They're not that old. I'm gonna guess maybe 5, 8 years. I'm guessing because they were there before I started. But they weren't. They had to install some safety devices and relief valves and stuff electronically to meet code, and that was done by Hula Oil, and that bill was about $2,200. So everything's up to date, everything's certified, and they've been out of code for a while. I just happened to dig into things, which I probably shouldn't have, but at least everything's up to snuff on that part. And we also have a split unit for the vault up in the attic, which runs the AC and the heat just for the vault. And I spent almost $2,000 last year in repairs, and I had to call them back this year a couple of times, and the repair was a little over $3,000. So I talked to Carter, and I suggested that we budget for a new unit, which is $5,000. But I just don't want to keep sinking money into this unit and not getting anywhere. So that is on the budget to get replaced as well.
I'm surprised about the town hall. It wasn't up to code because it's been around 5 years that that heating system was put in, the double boiler down there.
Yeah. Yeah, they well, I don't know who originally installed them, but they get inspected every year. And if we didn't start complying, we could have gotten fined for not complying. So I made a decision to bring them into compliance.
Have
Hey,
you,
Tony?
Yeah.
on the as far as the contract for that originally, didn't it state that they should be up to the code? Do you know?
I haven't seen the original contract, so I can't really answer that, Will.
Okay, thank you. I'm just concerned that here we have a boiler that's only 5 years old, and we have safety issues that it should have been in the contract per se for that.
Yes, you think it would have been up to code, or I don't know if I don't think this code just came out. I think it's been out there for a while.
Well, that's my thought
Right.
also.
I would have to do some digging and try to find out if and who and where the contract would be. I don't even know who was in charge of it.
I can tell you who was in charge of it. It was one of your selectmen. It was Doug. Doug was in charge of that.
He's not a selectman anymore.
Well, I understand that, but he was in charge of that
Okay.
for getting the contract. And the contract probably ended up being put into. I'm not sure if it would be the accountant or the treasurer should have a copy of that since they can pay the bill.
I'm sure there's a copy of that bill at town hall somewhere. I mean, I can definitely try to look into it and see what I come up with, but it's pretty much water over the dam, and the services have been taken care of, and we're all up to date. I don't know if you're going to be able to go back that many years to on a contract if there was one.
I get very frustrated when I hear something like this here, and all of a sudden we have to go back and correct something that's not that old, and it should have been vetted better to take and end up making sure it was up to code.
Well, I agree with you 100%. Like I said, I'm here for Templeton. If they put me in charge of getting prices or doing a job, following up with the contractors.
Oh, I'm not questioning you, Bob. I'm questioning the fact that here we had new systems put in, and we dropped the ball, and now we have to take and end up supplementing it. It's costing the town even more. We see that time and time again over the last couple of years. That gets costly when you end up having stuff like that, and the citizens of this community are paying for that, paying for those errors. And I get very frustrated when I see this type of thing come around. I'm not blaming you, but I'm saying it should have been up to code at the time that it was put in.
Well, I agree with you again. Like I said, believe me, I'm sick to my stomach and stuff. I mean, this is just a small part of what I've come across and stuff that hasn't been either neglected or done properly or the proper paperwork. And I'm trying to improve that.
Because originally we had a local contractor that was going to have it up to code, and they went off to get somebody else because he didn't have the right bond, and that it screwed a local contractor here that was going to end up having it, and he would have had I'm sure he would have come back in and made it up to code, where you got another company outside of this community that ended up getting the bid, all because of the politics that were played to take and end up giving somebody else the contract. And
Okay.
I'm not blaming you, Bob. I get frustrated when I see this type of thing happening, and people should be on this committee should be aware of that.
I understand your frustrations, Will. things are getting better, and I'm doing the best I can and doing it right for the townspeople
I would
and
concur
all the
with that. Bob.
boards. But I think we need to move forward.
Yep.
Well, I really, it is frustrating, believe me. I deal with it every day.
So, Will, you're exactly correct. When you get something new like that, you shouldn't be having to put that kind of money into it, especially to bring it up to code. If the code was in, excuse me, if the code was in place at the time of installation, then that's on the installation contractor. So, Bob, thanks for taking the time and effort to get it to where it needs to be and all the other stuff you're doing. Does anybody have any other questions regarding this transfer?
Yeah, Bob,
Tony,
you
I
mentioned
do.
a 22,000. You're
Yeah.
asking, the
No,
original document over a week ago was for 20. Is that going to be sufficient?
No, I'm asking for 20. I have some money left. I'm not changing the amount of the 20. I'm just gave that total to you to tell you where I'm at. Anything over 20, I should be able to take care of within what I have left in my budget.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, if I
Yes,
might.
sir.
Yeah, hi. I have just a concern with the transfer in general. I noticed when Bob was talking, he mentioned basically that there's like 3,900 of this is actually for added fuel for the DPW garage under the, the burner that malfunctioned. This whole entire transfer is based on, oil supplier, oil for the boiler breaking down, the oil. Nothing for this, anything else that I heard Bob mention is mentioned in this transfer. And I think if we're going to act on this, it needs to be. Because I just think would be doing a disservice to those that go back and look down the road. And if they look at this document, it would look like, we had $20,000 in expenditures because of an $8,000 boiler that went down.
No,
Do you know what I mean?
Right. So
Yeah,
I think so Mr. May, I think what you're saying is the fuel amounts to, if my math is right, should never do public math, but it's 17,454. So the other two, 546.
Listen to me, Tony. I'm basically saying that the transfer that I'm looking at, the
Yeah.
request that I'm looking at, talks specifically about the DPW boiler breaking, and the excess oil they use for that is the justification for the 20,000. That is the transfer request.
no,
Well, no, I look at the first line under the, unfortunately, the assumptions that first, well, it's the third bullet station, Bob.
Okay.
I kind of look at that as a catch-all for everything. And that the one on the bottom is for the DPW specifically, that the top, it's actually the third bullet down, but that is what Bob talked about for the fire department.
That's a
and stuff.
known cost, if I'm not mistaken, because it's a gallon value or a price per
Right.
through the season, and it's an auto refill.
No, I think that's what they were saying though, is that their supplier, I know my oil company comes out just in time when I need oil, but it sounded like, if I understood Bob correctly, is they top these off weekly.
Right, because, well, they probably need them weekly on a regular basis.
well, excuse me if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yes, it involves all the buildings, and the DPW is an increase as well due to the waste oil furnace being out of service. This money has nothing to do or replacing this furnace. The furnace is on the budget or capital planning. This was just a small part of it.
Right,
As
I'm just
I
saying, Bob, that this just says the oil cost for that, basically, and it does say, refer to, that they came and were judicious about refilling the
Okay, I use
tanks.
the word assumption and
But
it-
I'm just saying that, you're asking for $20,000 and a big part of it is DPW. And that boiler, like you said, you came in October and asked, and it is on the capital plan for a $9,000 replacement, and that's just it, you know? I think there should be more breakdown of that $20,000 number is all my concern, because it seems confusing to me.
I have
Well-
to agree with you, Bob. The breakdown to take for that 20,000 should show the maintenance as well as the oil for the buildings. So that it's not just for one particular boiler. It shows that across the board for a number of boilers and maintenance for the $20,000 that he's looking for. It's too narrow on the documentation.
Well, I agree too, because then you know, I mean, if we're looking at this and just to play the devil's advocate, if you want, how are we going to put anything in place to change this next year so that we may stop the, you know, diligent topping off of the oil at the end of the year?
If I may, as I read to you earlier, each location, how much we're over or under. Next year, specifically the Baldwinville Fire Department is going to be better identified. The company we use this year for oil would happen to be Hoodola Oil. They did a marvelous job. We didn't have one run out, but they had a truck once a week, if not more, during the cold snap, which I really don't think we had a bad winter. And the contract was to the end of June. I just emailed Hoodola Oil and asked them if they could stop by June 15th so I can close out my year. And he agreed on it. Next year, where I'm not going in with the school, I'm gonna set my date for June 1st.
If
To
I may ask
be-
a question.
Sure.
So if I understand Will and Mr. May or Bob correctly, what they really want is a breakdown of the $20,000. Now, if we ask that the transfer be redone, it could take longer because the Board of Selectmen would have to vote on it, and I don't know when their next meeting is. I don't know if they have a meeting next week or not.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
they have already approved for the 20,000. So I think it's just getting you a specific breakdown that you're requesting.
That is what that's where I was going, Kelly.
Right.
Kelly.
So if we can
is-
have that for you we can hopefully get that to them by Monday, Bob.
Mr. May and
Sure.
Mr. Spring, would that be sufficient information to you if we got an email with the breakdown of what you're asking for you to make a decision on the transfer next week?
Well, two things, Mr. Chairman, is that one, a better breakdown. Number two is going back to the select board. The select board meet again next Wednesday prior to us meeting. So they have a chance to take and end up seeing what the breakdown is and voting on that rather than a lump sum that they don't know what the breakdown is. They have a second whack at that. I'm looking at the schedule right now, the meeting schedule, and it shows Board of Selectmen meeting at 6:30 on the 10th. And
So-
our next meeting is on the 11th.
I don't know.
Chairman?
Just a minute, Kelly. I don't know, Bob, if you got to watch the rest of the meeting last night with the transfers. Did they break the transfer down at the request, at the time of the request?
Not that I saw.
Okay. So it's
And
just
No, they had-
I'm fine with what Kelly suggested about getting the breakdown, you know, Monday. That's it, basically. I just, you know, want information.
and I think, Will, that's really what you're asking for also is the actual information contained within that 20,000 where it's being allocated and
Right.
and
If
and I think if we get an email, I think since we're going to delay this to next week, I would hope that would be sufficient information for you to make a decision on.
If it's a supplement email to the selectmen and attach it to the document, give a breakdown, yeah, that would probably That would probably be better, since they've signed up on 20,000.
Right, so Kelly, could you take a note and get that to Mike Curry and Adam and Carter, that we need
Yes.
just a complete breakdown of everything. Bob, I'm sorry, but Will is correct that I understand why we're trying to do transfers quickly, and I did get the memo from Carter, but it's not fair to our committee to have to basically react within 6 or 8 hours of getting an email to approve a transfer, especially this early in June, where if you were just absolutely hurting and had to have the money to be expended next week, then I think we would look at something different. But I think that from what you said, we could wait a week to approve this.
Well, we got until the 15th. The end of the year transfers can happen till the 15th.
No,
So-
I know, no, Will, I know when they
Yep.
can.
Yep.
But I think Mr. Sozik would like it sooner, which is fine. That's well within our power to
I
do.
think as long as we get the information, there shouldn't be any issue with doing it next week.
Right.
In Bob's defense, it's very difficult forecasting the oil usage of some of these big
Oh,
buildings,
sure.
because especially the fire stations, DPW, every time those doors go open, the furnace runs for the next 4 hours. So there's no going forward. It's really a guess on how much you're going to use when it comes to that, unfortunately.
Right. I agree with that.
Libraries
So-
and those are a little easier, but
So if I may, if I list each location as I read off to you tonight, and what amounts we are over on and looking for, and same as the unexpected repairs, you'd be okay with that?
Yep, as long as it equals 20,000 or more. If it's more, then you just explain the $2,000 more is I already have the funding within my budget to do that. I think that would be acceptable.
Okay, and another positive note, to something to think about, is don't forget we are getting that green grant, and we should start seeing improvements with efficiency over time.
Great.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion on the floor right now for tabling this till the next meeting.
Okay,
In
do
a
you want to
second.
amend, would you like to, before we get the second, would you like to amend that to include the fact that the committee is asking for the additional information?
Yes, so moved.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second,
Okay, Will,
Yes,
Bob, May,
yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Tom,
yes.
and I'm a yes.
Thank you,
Bob,
Mr. Sozik. Excuse
yeah,
me.
Bob, thanks very much for understanding. Will's got a really good point. I knew when he sent the email he sent today that it was for a reason, and but he does have a point. Is if this was July 14th, we might have to look at some latitude, but I think we have a little bit of time, and I don't think you're going to be using a ton of oil right now. So
I mean, if you look at the select board, Mr. Chairman, there is only one person on that select board that hasn't got a copy of the policy because she's new. All the rest of them have it, and the administrator has it, and the accountant has it.
I
This
don't
is
think
going
there's-
way back.
right. I don't think anybody's trying to do anything bad, Will. I think they're just
No,
trying
I'm
to
not
get
saying that.
things-
I'm saying
I
that.
think they're just trying to move things quickly with this budget year, and but I think we have time. So we have the motion. It's moved. So I would like to go on to the next transfer, which is the veterans transfer. This one we got the first. It is signed. I have a bunch of them, but I don't really have, extra funeral costs. Okay. As it didn't get a big write-up. So since we did not get this in a week, I believe that it's prudent that we table this till next week also. If we're gonna,
And-
if we're gonna do the one for today, we got this the first, which was Monday. That's not a week prior. I don't think
So
it's
Miss-
going to be an issue, but
I do have some questions, though. Maybe that Kelly can end up answering, or having the VSO come. Is that I think she can answer. there's quite a bit of money that we're from the employee benefits. That seems to be kind of high. That's just a comment per se. And I'm concerned
Sure.
about this particular one being a veteran, that the amount of money that is being asked, I don't think is sufficient. Why do I say that? And I think we need some clarification from the VSO as to why it's only this much, because I just went through it with paying expenses for a funeral for my aunt here, and it was way more than $5,000.
Right, but I don't think that they pay for the whole funeral, Will. I think that they just pay that it's more like a stipend that they pay per funeral.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, yes, they only pay $2,000 per funeral. So, you know, and that's, we usually budget for maybe 1 or 2 in the year. And unfortunately, we've had more. So that's why, plus there's been, with the COVID, there has been a few more people that have come forward that have asked for help that we haven't helped in the past. But most of it is from the funeral. And the reason it's only $5,000 is because that is the amount of money with what's currently in the budget to pay for the June benefits.
Okay.
There was no need to ask for any more additional funds.
Okay.
What if we have another death, Kelly? That's why I'm saying I want to make sure that there's enough money that they can have the veterans get their benefits. And also if we come up against a funeral, I want that veteran to get his money. As a veteran, I want that money that they can end up going to the vets.
I 100% as a veteran myself will agree.
And
But I think that we can wait, do this transfer, and if need be, we, like you said, we have till the 15th of July. We could do another transfer. It's sort of a catch-22, because if we put more money in there and it's not used, then it's going to go into free cash. And if we don't put more money in there, it's going to end up in free cash. So I think that being the end of the year, I think we have a path forward in case they need more.
Yeah, we'd be better off doing an extra transfer than putting it in and not being able to transfer it to someplace that's going to
I
use
mean,
it.
that's my thought. Will, I 100% agree with you that I wish we could pay fully for a veteran's funeral, but that's my thought on that. But I do, I don't think does anybody else have any comments on this?
If
You
this
want a
is-
motion that they can end up moving it?
Well,
also tabling it?
hold on. I just want to make sure nobody else has any
Oh,
comments.
okay, all right.
No, I was just gonna say that I agree with you, Tony, that if, you know, if there's the possibility of moving money later, to just kind of move what's necessary now and wait and move
Yeah.
other money later if we need it, I agree with that.
Okay. Anybody else have comments? All right,
You're looking for a motion?
I'm looking for a motion to delay this until the 11th of June, prior to the pre-town meeting.
I'll make a motion to end up tabling the transfer for the veterans funeral costs till our next meeting on the 11th.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, Will,
Yes.
Bob,
Yes.
Lee,
Yes.
Amy,
Yes.
Deb,
Yes.
Tom,
Yes.
and I'm a yes. All right. Kelly, if you just report those two back to Carter and Adam, and I'm sure I'll be sending them an email here tomorrow just to let them know the reason why. And I will quote the policy if I have to. But
Okay.
Can we have the VSO come and give us a breakdown as to why the benefit's only 2,000? I mean,
I think we could, but I think that could wait for another meeting.
Well, if she can end up even sending us an email as to, hey, this is the criteria, or this is the Mass General Law.
Okay.
That'd be fine.
Okay. All right. Let me see what's next on our agenda. Okay, the warrant. Oh,
I'm
go ahead,
sorry.
Kelly. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Kelly.
That's okay. Thank you for your time, and I will give the information to Mr. Terenzini, and he'll be in touch.
Okay,
And
thanks.
Bob will get the email to you also with that breakdown.
Well, like that email, Bob, if you would send that email through Carter so it comes
Mhm.
officially from the town to us.
Will do.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
guys.
for
Have a great
everything.
night.
Thank
too.
you,
Thanks
Kelly.
for the
Thank
great
you,
work,
Bob.
Bob.
Welcome.
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you, Kelly. Okay, so I didn't know if anybody wanted to discuss the warrant. We're going to discuss it. One of the things that I wanted to discuss is what was presented last night at the Board of Selectmen. And it's essentially their courses of action. Everybody got the memo, but their courses of action on the budget as it relates to COVID-19. So they basically came up with three, I'm gonna find it here. They came up, Adam did a lot of work and came up with essentially three different courses of actions is what I would call them. They don't call them that, but that's more what we do in the military. The first one was to stay with the FY21 budget. The pluses for that is there's budget certainty. The minus to that is if some of the repayments don't come in as expected, that we may have to make an adjustment at fall town meeting. Their strategy would be initially to constrain spending early on, that people could only spend on those bills that had to be spent. You could put off buying a couple boxes of paper, and I just use that sort of as an example. There's some things that can be pushed off. We know that we do have bills in the first couple months that have to be paid. The second option was essentially start the year with the FY20 budget. You have budget certainty, but then you're going to have to make cuts of about $225,000. They have 222, and those are going to be mostly against the three biggest departments, and that's DPW, police, and fire. Really the places we don't want to cut. And again, it would need a supplement to bring it back up to where it needs to be at the fall town meeting. And then the third course of action was go into what they would call a 1/12 budget. And what that does is allows you to wait till the financial and the paybacks are a little more clear. But the big drawback to that is we don't think we're going to have the revenue. It's going to be a challenge to pay July and August bills on a 1/12. Additionally, if the school, what was said last night, I don't think the school would do this, is if we don't approve the budget on the 17th, the school could go back and recertify a higher number. I don't know why they thought that, but that was sort of what was said. Another thing they got really wrapped around the axle about was the fact that for some reason a couple of people thought we weren't having a town meeting on the 17th, and that was never said. What was said was they are preparing the 1/12 budget in case the town doesn't approve the FY21 budget. The town, the Board of Selectmen and the town administrator and assistant town administrator, their recommendation to town is to stay the course with the FY21 budget, with the backup of they'll be prepared by the 1st of July to submit a 1/12 budget if it doesn't pass. Now, I just said in less than 5 minutes what it took them an hour and a half to get across. It's very frustrating to watch.
Did they vote on any particular one?
Well, they didn't really vote because it was a workshop, Will, but they all, 3 of the 4 recommended going to FY21. One of them even suggested we look at going to FY19. But the majority of the people said go to stay the course with the FY21 budget. constrain the spending early on, and if the budget needs to be supplemented, they would do that at the fall town meeting. Now,
So Tony, I just want to make, I just want to make sure I'm getting it right. So 3 of them were suggesting, I didn't have an opportunity to watch it,
yeah,
that we go forward on numbers that we know aren't coming in.
yeah,
Because we know they're not, we're not going to get the same numbers going forward.
right, but they don't.
Last year and
They
we
don't.
planned on in December.
Right. So I think that their budget sort of accounts for 10%. So if it's anything over 10%, then we have to maybe adjust it using stabilization fund or something like that at the fall town meeting.
To me, it just seems like if to make the deeper you go into the fiscal year, the deeper the cuts are going to be being people, not items.
Right.
And I think the biggest challenge is to keep everyone employed as far as, the jobs for the members of the town. We go forward on telling departments, be nice now, don't spend your money. I don't know what the chances are that's actually going to happen.
I think it will. I think that the departments have done a good job in this town the last few years of when they know they've got to be in a constrained environment, they've done so. The fiasco with the school last year, last year really kind of made people be more constrained in what they did. They had to.
So do I understand this correctly, Mr. Chairman? They did not vote on any of the 3 items, but yet they voted on a transfer in a workshop. That's against their policies.
Nope. They explained why they could do that. It was if you look.
It's not an emergency.
Carter cited something that made it legal. I'll have to look at the email. We all got the emails of why it was okay to do.
He got a spin on it again. Listen, I'm tired of seeing spins on something when they have a policy. They got a policy. They didn't follow it. Now, if they said it was an emergency, I could end up buying into that. And if you heard Bob say it wasn't an emergency that they can end up for that 20,000. People wonder why I get frustrated when I see these type of things and things are not being followed.
Tony, do we know if on the 112th budget, have they approached the DOR yet on finding out if they would allow some of the larger items like the Worcester County retirement, the benefits, the debt services to be outside of the 112th as an exception? I know.
I would have to check with Adam. I know they have talked to the DOR, but I don't.
If those larger numbers can be taken allowed by the DOR outside of the 112th budget, that certainly would make the other spending easier going forward for the first couple months.
Right.
Actually have numbers.
Right. So my understanding is the Worcester County retirement system has basically said, no, you're going to pay us when it's due. They're not cutting anybody any slack or anything like that.
Right.
I will have to check with Adam on whether they any of the big expenditures can be outside.
Was I wrong in saying that when we got that memo, he outlined all the things that had to be paid for expenses right off the bat? There was a long list of them, and benefits were obviously one of them for retirement, along with others. There was a list of probably about 15 to 18 items that have to be paid.
Right. So if you notice, he said, we are starting to review our necessary bills. Adam did say last night, because if you notice the school's not on there, Monty Tech's not on there, that this is not an all-inclusive list. They're going to come up with it, but it is not all-inclusive of everything that would have to be paid. This was operating budget items that he came up with. And then we know that there is whatever we'd have to pay to Narragansett Regional School District and Monty Tech.
Those 2 schools are some large numbers. Maybe we should work together with them.
Well, I don't disagree with that. But they seem to be very concerned about the fact that if we did not pass the 21 operating budget and went into this 112, that the school could come ask for more money. They could basically decertify their certified number and then ask, recertify a higher number. I don't know where Carter came up with that, but he.
Well, I guess technically they could, but they also would still, with the 112th, they're still going to fall under the purview of the DOR.
Right.
So what they certify or whether they certify it, it shouldn't change too much, I wouldn't think.
So what I heard last night was, I didn't hear a lot of concern about FY21 as far as how close they're going to be, and the need to go to it was more 22, 23, 24 is that they're more concerned with, and is how Adam presented it. So they weren't really concerned. They thought that 21, if it went 10%, they can handle that. If it went 20% less from the state aid, and they just don't know how much they're going to get in state aid, that we may have to request something from the stabilization fund.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
Am I, yeah, it's nice to hear Tom, and I agree with many of the issues or many of the statements that he made regarding, you know, how this looks. As far as, you know, let's go with the budget that we had in place. We had different numbers. I heard last night at this meeting, the overall message was, let's just not do anything and wait and see. And if it falls apart, we'll come back to you for more money at town meeting and we'll eat up the free cash. That's basically what I heard last night. I didn't hear any plan. I didn't hear any preparation. I heard grave concerns for the out years, but no concern between now and then. That makes no sense.
I would say that's what I heard.
And, you know, this idea that 10% we can handle. Why the hell do we have to handle things? Why can't we plan for things? Why do we have to always react? This is ridiculous. We know, everybody and their brother knows, the people that live under rocks know that the budget is going to go down, that the revenue is going to decrease, federal, state, local. And if you don't, I don't know what to say.
Right. I agree with you. I do think that the amount of money that we're going to get from the state is going to go down. But unfortunately, nobody can predict how much.
Well, I agree. Nobody can predict how much, but we know something. So is there the course of action that we're taking is doing nothing is better than doing something, because if we do something, we might do too much by 1% or 2%. I mean, that's
I wouldn't say that I don't get the impression that they're going to do nothing. My impression is they want to go with the 21 budget, but constrain spending. So if the hit is larger than expected, there's money to absorb that. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, to hear it, Tony, I can hear it, but I don't know how you just say to people constrain spending, like Tom was saying, unless there's a plan to constrain spending, you know, unless there's some guidelines to spending that needs to be constrained, you let 10 different people be the judge of their own budgets, and the constraining is, you know, limited.
I wouldn't disagree with that, Bob. I'll tell you what, after listening to them for an hour and a half, I was really confused in what they were even trying to get across.
Do nothing.
Well, but a couple people just got so confused about, oh, we're not having a town meeting. Yes, we're having a town meeting. No one ever said we weren't having a town meeting. And I don't know, there were just some comments that were very different.
It was a very awkward meeting.
Yeah.
In the letter that Carter sent out, the only thing he talked about as far as budget conservation in FY21 was effective June 30th, all purchases of bottled water are ceased. I mean,
was he using
bottled
that?
water,
There
when
you
you've
go.
got
That'll do
$1 million
it.
budgets.
Right. So was he just being, I don't want to say facetious, but was he being just as an example, we're going to do this? So,
You know, when you talk about bottled water, for one thing, I mentioned that to a couple of people, and they're wondering what the hell is going on with budgeting when we can end up buying bottled water for the folks in the town. We got regular water that they can end up drinking. There's not, according to what we know, there's nothing wrong with town water. Every building has town water. And then to take and address your thing, Bob, about the 10%, we can take that up in the budget. There's a 10% budget figure in the budget, if not more. That's why they can absorb it. That's why I keep saying is this budget should have been less and put more money into spending on capital.
well, remember when they start putting the budget together, we weren't faced with COVID and the effects of COVID.
10% was there.
That's
And they
exactly
were-
right, Tony.
Right. The 10% has been there for the past few years, Will. That is how they do the budget.
When they did this budget, Tony, you're exactly right. We weren't faced with what we're faced with now. So in order to go forward with the same thing we proposed when we weren't faced with the challenges we have right now, just seems to be backwards.
Well, but what I heard last night was they don't believe that the decrease in meals tax and other things really are going to make that much of a difference.
No, I don't think the decrease in meals taxes will, but I think the decrease in the state aid that we're not going to get, we know we're not going to get, because
Well, but we don't.
we recover from being 5 billion in debt right now.
Right, but they did mention the fact that there's like a $3 billion rainy day fund that the state has.
And the
Now, I
state
don't
said they
think
will
they'll-
not drain
they'll-
that.
Yeah. So it's sort of I sort of feel for them because it's a catch-22. Okay. If you defund some things and then you come back and we get more money than we thought, well, it's not in the budget, but it's just a very difficult situation for them to predict. I mean, if you don't know, you don't know, and they have to do the best they can to put a budget forward to the town that they believe the town can afford. Now, I don't like the fact that they kind of said, okay, we'll go FY21, but we may have to dip into the stabilization fund, which is not that big right now. I mean, it could grow, but it's not that big. So,
Because they keep keeping more money for free cash instead of putting in stabilization.
yeah, I know. I agree with you there, Will.
And they should be putting more into stabilization over the last couple of years instead of keeping free cash.
Well, I agree with that, but whatever they've been doing has made the bond appraisers happy. So
They would be even happier when they see more stabilization and we come up
Agreed.
up against an issue like this here. That's what stabilization's for.
Exactly.
That they can end up stabilizing the fact that you a reduction in revenues per se. I mean,
Yep, I agree. No, I absolutely agree with you.
This is all fundamental stuff here.
I mean, if I had my way, the stabilization fund wouldn't be touched until it's over $1 million, and then it could never go below $1 million unless it was just an absolute dire emergency. But in one sense, they've done a pretty good job of getting the town in the right financial, getting things straightened out. They've done a good job of that. We've gotten good bond ratings for the school. Are they the best? No, but they're really good.
Like I said previously, when you have good times and the money's rolling in, it's easy that they can end up creating a budget that works. When you have bad times, that's when you really show how bad things are.
Right.
And that's where we are.
Well, they also talked about a lot of new growth in town.
If I might, Mr. Chairman, I just want to go off of something that Will was saying earlier, and he mentioned when we were talking about the transfer, the $242,000 remaining in insurance and benefits.
Yep.
And, I understand that that's part of the present administration's budgeting process, that's, whatever the purse or whatever the
Yep.
deal is.
Yep, I agree.
But my argument to that would be that money should be in the town reserve or the advisory committee reserve and to be utilized properly. My personal opinion.
I
agree with you, Bob.
disagree with that. I absolutely agree with that. I don't think personally, I mean, I think it's okay to over budget, if you will. So you do have some reserves at the end. But I think that in some cases, maybe we've gone to the extreme where we're having over $1 million of free cash. So
Be a little more conservative on what they budget, and they would still have probably free cash, but they could end up utilizing it for stabilization, also for emergency reserve fund, so that if they did a budget that was conservative, ended up getting into problems, we could end up transferring that money.
concur.
That's what the emergency reserve
Exactly.
that we have is for, is that you have tighter budgets, and if you go outside of the spending for the budget, it's unexpected, you ended up putting more money in. It's an
I agree.
emergency.
I agree. So my overall impression is I believe they're going to keep the warrant for the town budget as they proposed. There was talk about a possible amendment. That's going to be up to them. I didn't get a feeling either way, Bob. I don't know if you remember that. They have talked about an amendment. I don't know when they're going to find out how much state aid we're getting. Does anybody know that answer?
State's saying sometime late October, maybe November.
Yep.
Right.
And they could also, Mr. Chairman, they could end up passing over the budget issue and go 1/12. I mean, that's an option.
Well, right. It is. But do you go 1/12 on the operating budget and fund Narragansett or the schools? Because if you go 1/12, my impression of the meeting last night, and I may be wrong, was you have to go 1/12 on everything.
I don't think so, because the school is a separate warrant article.
Well, it is, but they brought it up in Adam's memo that I think it was Jeff Bennett that brought it up, that it wasn't in there. And Adam said, look, this is what we're looking at. This isn't an all-inclusive list. But he focused on the town operating budget and not the schools. So he would add the schools number in there is what his plan was. So maybe what it is you take whatever the school budget is and you divide it by 12, and then they get their money. But I'm just going to make this up. This is not their budget, but say they were going to get $12 million for the year, then they would get $1 million per month.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So, and maybe that's how the schools work. I'll check with Adam about that.
We don't do things logically here anyway.
I think people try hard. I don't think anybody's doing anything to get over on anybody or to do things wrong. I think that, as you know, Will, having been in industry, you work for different managers. They have different strategies and different ways they like to do things. And you kind of have to, while they're the person that's doing all the work, you kind of have to go along with not really go along with what they say, because it's a town and it's different and we do have a voice, but when they're paid to do something, you have to kind of look at it from their point.
Well, all of the years that I worked, over 30 years, the bad managers didn't last long. The good managers, and I had a lot of them, lasted a long time.
So, well, that's true, and that's true where I work. But you know, when I was in the military, you get a bad manager, you might be stuck with them for 2 years. So,
Well, that's a different story.
yeah. So, all right. Does anybody want to go through any more of the warrant articles? I know we're going to go through them ad nauseum next week. So
This spills into your thing about pre-town meeting. I've looked at some stuff about the pre-town meeting, and I saw that you had put in for the article to be on a Saturday,
Yep.
and there's an issue there. If that doesn't go in, I'm not sure.
I got confirmation it's going in on the 6th.
Okay.
Today.
The other thing I have a concern about is that the fact that they're having a special town meeting and you don't have a notification for that.
Well, okay. So now I guess I could have put it, I didn't think of it. Since that's going to happen at the same time, I think it's maybe, we'll discuss it. We'll explain it. I think, I mean, I didn't want to put another article in the paper for a special town meeting and spend whatever it was, $55, $60 for an announcement for a mistake that fortunately Adam caught. That I think the special town meeting was a way for them to get the sewer budget in. I think it's the sewer or the water, to get it into the town meeting, because it got left off the warrant.
Another screw up on getting the warrant ready. This is the type of things that I keep pointing out. When you have such a big thing, it shouldn't be missed. And oh, by the way, you could have put it in for the notice as to annual town meeting and special town meeting.
I could have done that, but honestly, Will, at the time I did it Tuesday, I didn't think of it, honestly.
I just hope we don't get any pushback on it, Tony, that's all.
I don't think we will. I mean, if someone wants to push back, you know, they can.
Well, right now, everybody don't care anyway, because from what I've heard.
Well, I'll admit, I am very concerned at what the turnout's going to be at the town meeting. Like, no offense, Will, I don't expect you to be there. That's your choice to do, but.
You're going to see a lot of the people, especially those people that are on the more mature side, and I'll put it that way, the more mature side that generally show up to the meeting will probably not attend because the state has not opened this up per se. They're not going to open it up till July.
Right. So what I have been told, and don't quote me on everything, is the state rules do not apply to us to Templeton for the town meeting. And if you have any questions on that, I would suggest that you ask the moderator. Now, they are still going to plan on going in and social distancing and requesting people wear masks and stuff like that. They have a plan for that, but
it's an organization that's meeting of more than 10 people. The state hasn't said you can end up having more than 10 people in an enclosed area.
You're right. But it was told to me, and I forget who told me, that those rules don't apply to our town meeting.
If they don't apply, how come we didn't have graduation?
Yeah, exactly.
But, well, honestly, that was brought up to me too, because I have a grad. They are having a graduation on the 20th, but it's not going to be a typical graduation. We got the email. I think my wife and daughter know what they're going to do.
Yeah, I know what they're going to do in that. I'm just saying if it doesn't apply.
I know. If you have any questions on that, I would either ask the TA, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen, or the moderator, the rules and why, or the Board of Health on why, what's applicable and what's not.
So you're going to get a spin on this, Tom, as to why they can do one and not the other.
It's rhetorical. Michael, I already know the answer. I just
Yeah.
asked the question.
Yeah, you know, look, believe me, I've been hearing it from my seniors. So, so we'll do. So next week at the pre-town meeting, the 7 of us will be via Zoom, and of course with Sean on, and then,
Is there any chance of getting Carter or Adam? I know.
for
I
the-
asked
yes, yes.
I just think that might be a
Yes, they actually asked me if we wanted them to be as part of the town meeting or the pre-town meeting, and I told them yes.
That would be good because
Yeah.
I think having at least to hear their reasoning, because they may have legitimate reasoning.
Mhm.
We don't hear it. We just go questions back to them,
I
forth, and nothing gets solved.
Yeah, I thought Carter did a pretty good job of explaining things. Whether you agree with him or not is a different story, but I thought he did a good job. I think you know, Adam tried, and he was taken off track by a couple people of the board, and they just could never get the train back on the rails. And then finally Carter stepped up. So yes, I'm going to request that both of them, they asked me if we wanted them there, and I said yes. So we'll be on Zoom, and then everybody else will be on YouTube Live. I talked with Steve Castle a little bit before this. He came on, and I guess they're getting people will be on YouTube Live, and they, you know, they know it's not somebody from town, and they want the meeting number and the password to get into our Zoom meeting, and they're just not going to allow that. So until they can come up with a better platform where you can be secure, anybody in the
Zoom is considered malware by any of the people that, you know, as far as
Yeah.
security.
Yeah, we can't use it at work. We have other tools that we use at work. So so that's what's going to happen with a pre-town meeting. Debbie, I'm going to send you an email, or actually I could just tell you over here. What might be helpful to help you is just, so we're not going to get our recommendations into the voter guide. So if you can just have a list of all the different articles and then what our recommendation is. And then if you send that to me, I'll take it to Staples and I'll go make a bunch of copies, and we'll have it at the town meeting to pass out. So it's not going to be part of the voters guide. It'll be an independent thing because they needed it last week for the voters guide. And I didn't want to have a pre-town, or they needed it by, I think, today's meeting. And I didn't want, I wanted us to be able to discuss the memo that they sent. And I didn't feel that we could do that effectively and go through all the warrant articles.
Mr. Chairman.
So, yes.
Mr. Chairman, yes, it won't be in the voters guide, but if you ask that they can end up putting it on the website, it will make, as far as our requirement, 2 days before the annual town meeting is what it's stated, that we have to have our recommendation out and have it put out on the webpage, and and maybe even our page.
Well,
And
I'll definitely have it put on our page, and I will send it to Carol to ask that she put it on the town website along
And
with
also
the voters
Holly.
guard and Holly. I always include Holly on everything I send to the town
Yeah.
hall.
That would cover us as far as
Yep.
making the
But I will
bylaw.
also make hard copies and bring them to the meeting.
That's a good idea. Thank you.
All right. Where's my email? Not sure, I lost it. I think next was any old business.
Well, one of the things under old business is that you put the thing out about terms.
Yes.
I have a concern that, and this is not against you, Tom. This is, yes, he's taking the place of somebody that their term was up in 22, but he has to be reappointed.
Yeah,
the moderator.
I meant to send Carol a question on that.
Trying to get rid of me already, Will.
No. That's
at all.
that's not what I'm trying. I'm
Just
trying to
kidding.
say there's a proper way to do it. You're taking the place of somebody that their term would have been done in 22, And because of the process that was used to get you on, the moderator has to put you on at an annual town meeting to make it official. That's really,
Yeah,
and to
right.
fill that.
And I apologize for not getting that out sooner, but I am gonna reply to Carol's email. So here's what I know. Debbie's up, Bob's up, Lee's up, and Tom. I guess I need to know from members. I've already put out, I know of a couple members that are currently not planning on staying on the board, and I respect everybody's decision. But I put a notice on our webpage, and Amy, thank you for adding to that. I put it on a couple others. So if anybody knows anybody that, as of right now, as of last night, they haven't had any forms or interest yet. So we're going to try to get it out closer to town meeting and just let people know if anybody knows anybody interested in joining. We're probably going to need at least 2 members.
I think we're going to be hard pressed to get people to come on. I could be
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
I've talked to a couple that are thinking about possibilities, so we may find a couple that want to kind of work with things.
Okay, that'd be great.
What, Tony, have you heard anything on the changeover plan? I know we had mentioned that. Has that
What do you mean, a changeover plan?
to Adam? Has that?
Oh, yeah, no, I got nothing back from that email.
Nothing on, what about the other emails of that you had put out to them?
No, I pretty much got an acknowledgement they have them.
No response, no action.
No response of, okay, let us get through town meeting and then we'll put them on the agenda. Nothing.
Well, if that's the case and we make these recommendations and that's what we're at, why should we even make recommendations to a warrant when the selectmen aren't listening? Why? And if the selectmen aren't listening and people see that, they're going to say, why should we listen also?
You could take it that way, but I think we have 7 strong people that we're going to vote on the warrant articles. That's our job. What the Board of Selectmen choose to do, we can't control them. We still get out there and be the independent voice of the town. And I know what you're saying, Will.
Yeah.
There is definitely that possibility, but I like to think that the people of Templeton are a lot smarter than that.
Well, I know people view this, and I'm tossing it out there and saying, hey, here's what we've tried to end up doing. And oh, by the way, the memos that you put out wasn't the first attempt. I could show you multiple times.
Oh, I know.
Going back years.
Yeah,
and,
I know.
And it's a different select board, but they're still not listening because of one person, and it's not on the board.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't want to go down that. I usually get a response from one of the members of the Board of Selectmen, at least acknowledging receipt of the any email or memos that we send. They did kind of mention that we brought some stuff up last night, but they never, that we had some concerns about some different stuff, but they never went any further with that. So,
Tony, do you know how when they put things on the agenda, I know it's the chairman, I think it's the chairman.
I think it's at the discretion of the chairman.
Is there a process of different boards putting things on? I
don't know.
It used to be in most communities are if a board or a department head wants to discuss something, they're given the respect of putting it on the agenda.
I would hope that's the case. If you want to email Mike Curry and ask him if he,
Okay.
I don't know I don't think it's at the whim of the chairman, but ultimately he's the one. I mean, that's why I always do a call to everybody, usually on a Sunday, Monday, to see if any of you all want something on the agenda other than what I might be thinking about, because
Right, but like, I'd like to think that if if a department head said, they'd like to discuss something on our agenda, that we put them on out of respect.
absolutely, we definitely would.
I'd like
Oh.
to think that's reciprocated throughout the other boards, no matter which board it is.
I think they're
Tom-
supposed to.
Yeah, Tom, just to take and answer your question. This committee had put a couple of times a request to be on the agenda. And I can tell you of a couple of instances where we had members that actually made a presentation to the select board, past select boards. So depending on the chairman allowing to go on, it has transpired in the past that this committee has been able to get on the agenda and make a presentation.
Right,
that
but then,
ask-
but Will, sometimes you guys do a lot of great, in past, you've done a lot of great work putting really good presentations together, and you don't get to get it all out because they just,
Right, good presentations, put it out. They end up looking at it, and the reaction is the same thing as an email. They sit there and say thank you, and they move on. Tom.
but I think if you do look, in some respects, some of the stuff we've been asking them is sort of pointing fingers at them, and I don't think that's our intent. We're not trying to point fingers at anyone. That there's processes and procedures that we want to know about. There was money allocated, and nobody really knows how that was approved, as Mr. May has so eloquently stated. And we just like, as representatives of the town, we'd like to know, why did this happen? And then what are you going to do to make sure it doesn't happen again? I don't think it's this board's responsibility to come up with a lessons learned as was suggested, because we don't have all the details. If they want to share every gory detail with us, then maybe we could do that, but we don't have all the details to do that.
Well, even when we made a presentation a number of years ago, it was pretty well out there. We didn't tell them how to take and do their job. We just tried to take and end up. Actually, it was a presentation of trying to take and end up working with them effectively, and it was like it was thus you against us.
Right. I remember that one.
Even though we tried to work with them, they ended up saying we don't want to do that.
Yep.
We
Mr.
had
Chairman, if you look right at their own board, they got their own board members going up before them, bringing up issues and problems, and the board just, thank you, and next.
Yep.
We're doing nothing.
I have to agree with you, Bob. I have to agree with you, Bob. That's happened a couple of times now when you had Board of Selectmen members go up, sit at the table, and end up spouting off about something and no reaction at all.
Yeah.
And
no follow-up.
And you get members on the select board who have been there for a while. They can basically say, and this is a quote, is I'm elected and you're appointed.
Yeah, but that's not by anybody that's on the board currently.
Yes, it is.
Oh, is it?
Yes. I'm not going to name names.
Nope, don't. Please don't.
I'm not. But I'm telling you, it is a member of the board.
Okay.
And it's on record. It was on tape.
But see, I think we can do better. I hope we can do better. But I think until there's some improvement, I think it's just going to make it harder and harder to fill these positions on the committees.
I don't disagree with you.
Because I know myself personally, I'm just frustrated as trying to get something done through the committee, because it seems like that's where things go to die.
I take the school charge that we wanted to come up with, that Faith had such a great idea about, and they basically told us, yeah, we're not interested in doing this. You go do it.
It took 5 months to say that, though.
Yeah, you go do it. So
I think we're still going to find people willing to go forward and join and try to move things forward.
I really hope so, Tom.
The past has been, maybe things haven't been recognized as much, or people aren't acknowledged that to let them speak and give their opinion on that. But I think if we have enough time, if you repeat your opinion enough on it, they may get sick of hearing it and actually listen once in a while.
Yeah,
Well,
might be
there-
right.
Tom, I'd like to take and end up seeing your positive thing as far as thinking about that. I've seen it time and time again, members of this committee that have brought stuff up and that have resigned because they brought stuff up to the select board and there's no cooperation at all from the select board. It isn't that that they were off the hook or anything, that they were accusing anybody. They made suggestions that they can end up making it a better process, and they were kind of poo-pooed, and the individual was the individual was very smart, a couple of them, and they're no longer on this committee because they resigned because of the way the politics are in this community. We see,
I think-
and I'm not saying that, I understand that, Will, and sometimes it's an uphill battle, and I don't believe in resigning because your way wasn't accepted the first time, but sometimes that is just the way it happens. But
Yep.
I think as we move forward and try to get new members and recruit new members, I think that the more we can give to the select board to work with them, they may not like the idea the first time, the second time, the third time, but eventually they're going to hopefully at least work with us, because
Right.
ultimately that's our board, their board, any of the boards. They're here to work for the town, and if we're not doing it,
Exactly.
we got to at least create an alternate route for them somehow.
well, you have to take and create a select board that has turnover, that actually wants to work with us. If you look at the past history over since 16, it hasn't been very easy that they can end up doing that. There's been suggestions trying to work with them, and you have a majority of the board that chooses not to. Let me put it
Right.
Let
Yeah,
me put
no,
it that way.
you're right, Will. I mean, I think in the 2 years that I've been on the board, I think we've made some strides. I am a little, not stunned probably isn't the word, but a little concerned that we didn't get further this year. I thought the first year we did really well with making some strides into cooperation with the Board of Selectmen. I just don't think I've seen whole lot of progress this second year.
Well,
As
and
far as
I think at this point we've got a kind of a weird last quarter here, so
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, I think they're
all of it's-
focused on a lot.
nobody
of things.
knows what we've done. Nobody's done this in the past, so kind of
Right.
moving uncharted waters on a lot of stuff.
Right.
to some degree, I have to agree with you, Tony, that there's some things that have been done. But overall, I mean, and this is not dispersion on any members. Past advisory committee have been more productive on getting things done, even on the committee level, than what we've been able to take and end up doing for whatever reason.
I
If you want elaboration, Mr. Chairman, I'll be glad to take and
that's
talk
okay.
to you about that, but I'm not going to bring
No.
stuff up.
No, that's okay. All right. So
That's the past, though. Well, I think we can move forward. I think.
yeah, I think we got. Yeah, at some point, I think we do have to keep moving forward.
I think, as Tony had said, I think it comes in, as you referred to, I think it comes in waves. We'll have, common points that we both focus on, but we are kind of an adversarial opponent to the BOS when it comes to budget and financial matters, because we're looking at it from, the taxpayer's point of view, and they're looking at getting the job done. It's a,
Right.
different side.
But that's for every community, Bob.
Oh, absolutely, it
That's
is.
true.
But it is, it does create confrontation. So, as long as overall we can work together towards the common goal.
Right.
good.
And you also have turnover, a lot of turnover. Usually every year you have a new member of the Board of Selectmen, and or possibly two. So there's just so many things that go into town politics. And remember, a lot of them, they're doing this because they're trying to improve the town, and they're doing the best they can. It would be nice if they'd listen a little more to a collective group of people, but
It gets
it's a
frustrating
process.
when you try to work with them and at least work with them and give back and forth dialogue on some stuff. Why other communities can be successful and we have not been able to do that.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for you there, Will.
I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just pointing that out.
Yep.
It's been here long enough. They're taking it up knowing that we've tried a number of things and it has not been successful. Where other communities, same thing comes up and it's not looked at negatively.
I think a lot of the area communities, everybody has their turn in the barrel, so to say. You can be on the front page of the paper, your budget's horrible, you're making cuts, and next year it's the next town over, and the next year it's the next town over, and it just cycles around. I think the key is when you cycle around to your time in the limelight, as far as negatively, it's as minimal as possible. And I think that's what our job is just try to keep keep things going forward economically as far as the monies go, and suggest to the board what ideas and let them expand on it.
If they only would.
Yep. All right. Any other old business? For new business, I have one thing. I've been working with the Gardner News on the bill. I have some information from them I've got to look over. I was told we had like a 1 article town meeting in January. I think I missed that, and that we owe for that, and then we'll owe for this one. But what my plan is, if I get the bill for this week's at the town meeting, if I get it before the meeting next week, I'll try to get a vote on. If not, if we have a quorum at the town meeting, I'll have to set up the meeting. We might try to be there for 15 minutes prior to a quick meeting to get it approved. If not, we'll just wait till the next meeting.
That's why, Mr. Chairman, if I could, that's why it's quite important that when you end up getting a bill and you submit it, is to keep copies.
Oh, I do. I have them, and I don't know what happened with this one, to be honest. I have a whole folder full of stuff. Well, it's not really organized right now. So we'll work it out. I mean, it's not that much money, so.
Just frustrating.
Yeah, it is. And that I know that they told me because of all the screw up from the fall town meeting, that was going to be free. I can't find the email from the woman that says that. I don't know why I can't find it, because I don't delete any emails. And so I'll keep looking for that. And she sort of remembers it. And so
that's why it's important to put it on the advisory committee. We can probably help you look for those emails.
It's on the advisory committee, in the advisory committee mailbox. So
is everybody copied on it, or?
Well, so the way I have it set up is, since I've been chairman, is any email sent to the advisory committee goes to all of us.
And any responses that
any
you put
responses
out?
if they hit a reply to all, it goes to some, not all the responses, but if they respond back, then you get the email trail.
Well, the same for yours. If you put any emails out, you should copy everybody. That way, I keep a big archive of all the stuff.
Yeah, but I kind of little torn between some of the little nit stuff. I don't want to bombard your email boxes with.
I don't mind.
No.
Just maybe the other members do. They can delete, but at least you'll know you have a backup.
Yeah. So
I can help you look.
Yeah. Okay.
There's
so
always a backup somewhere.
Yeah. So the next meeting. So we will have a meeting. So I'll have to set an agenda I guess I can update the whole meeting agenda. I put the meeting up yesterday, so I'll update that agenda to talk about the transfers. I think
It
that's
should be
all we.
before the meeting.
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Mr.
yeah.
Chairman,
So
yeah,
we'll,
yeah.
yeah. So we'll do that first, and then we'll do the pre-town. We'll start at 6:30.
Yeah, we can vote to go into that.
Yeah, right. So what we'll do is we'll start our meeting, then we'll what's the word I'm looking for? Not delay it, but suspend our meeting or go into recess and then start the pre-town meeting, and then we can finish the night going out of recess and closing it. Or we could just close.
That's a lot of
the-
work. We could just start at 6:20 and do the other two transfers at 6:20.
Yeah, we could.
I would recommend you go in 6:30. You end up going in transfers, and then you have a motion to go into the pre-town meeting, and get rid of, close the regular meeting and go at the pre-town meeting.
Okay. All right. Well,
And then
make sure.
And then when you
get-
close the pre-town meeting, you're done.
just remember that we're going to do the pre-town meeting, so we want to get through the transfers as quick as possible.
Yep.
All right. That sound like a plan to everybody?
Yes.
Okay. If nobody has anything else, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Heck it.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, everybody have a great night. We'll talk to you next week.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Tony. Good night, all.
Good night, everybody.